there was a point in time where I had, I mean, I think I had like 65 or 70 cameras running on this property throughout the season. And now I've actually backed off a lot. I still have a lot of cameras, and a lot of them I just don't use because it just becomes too much. It's too much information to try and process in a short amount of time.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's one thing that most people just don't run 65 cameras on one property, because most people aren't in a position to do that. What were some key findings, good and bad, of running that many cameras? I mean, obviously, you mentioned it's just too much data to process, but just talk a little bit about some of those key findings.
Yeah. So like you said, I mean, the big thing is time, right? It's like, how do you invest your time throughout the season? If you have a 40-acre property or something with 65 cameras on it, you're not doing yourself a favor with that many cameras. One, you're putting way too much pressure on that property with the cameras themselves, and also your presence checking that many cameras. Even if they're all cell cameras, and if they are all cell cameras, that's just a lot. It's expensive running that many cameras, that many batteries. I mean, what's a set of
that is a
lithium batteries run? Yes,
yeah.
exactly. But no, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of time. So you have to look at the fact of, how can I invest my time, and also, am I using my cameras correctly to get that information? And this is it's kind of an analogy to how humans operate. Instead of being more efficient with less, we just try to add more to make up for our inefficiencies, right? So yeah. But that was one of the things that I actually honestly wanted to just test out at that point in my life, where one example of that is, I was after this buck one year. He was frequenting this transition food plot right before dark, and then after dark they would transition out into the big ag field. So it was a really, really nice setup. That food plot was only like 25 yards from the neighbor's property. And I could not figure out, for the life of me, I could not figure out where this buck was coming from. And this is based off of having one camera on that food plot. So then it went from having one camera on that food plot to having two cameras on that food plot. And then pretty soon I had three cameras on that food plot. By mid-October, I had like 7 or 8 cameras around this quarter-acre food plot, either on the food plot or on trails leading to the food plot. Yeah, it's not a very big food plot at all.
Yeah.
But I could not dial in where this buck was coming from at that time. I always had the theory like, oh, he's coming from here, he's coming from there. And, based on those 4 key elements that I talk about all the time: the wind, pressure, food, and timing. I was just like, man, how is he approaching this food plot, and all these things? I had a couple opportunities, or a couple of experiences that just kind of prove that much data isn't beneficial at the end of the day. And that's, you have to bank on having a good plan and then adjusting your plan by proving and disproving those theories. And most of the time, if your camera's in a good situation or a good setup, you're going to accomplish that. And the other thing too with trail cameras that I try to get guys to understand in general is that, a camera should only be there as a sampling of what's going on in your property. You should not expect to get a picture of that buck every single time he's on that food plot, or every single time he goes through that travel corridor. He's not going to check that mock scrape or hit that water hole every single time he comes through there. Sometimes he's going to skirt the edge. Sometimes he's going to walk right by it. Sometimes he'll stop and sniff it, whatever it may be. But I learned real quickly that information just can be overwhelming. And then, fast forward a few years, having kids and having, prioritizing giving them time, or, having a business, prioritizing that time. It's like, now sitting down to check trail cameras, what used to be really exciting to me, and it still is, right? But what used to be really exciting, because I could invest that time. Now it's like sitting down to try and go through all those cards is a significant investment in time.
It is.
So I've learned, like, if you fine tune those setups and get just a handful of those cameras that you understand that are going to be high value cameras, then you can focus on just a handful of cameras, and that information that you get from them is higher in value in general, and you don't get so scatterbrained.